Hello, everybody. I am Kate Lincoln Goldfinch,
And I'm Hannah Hembry Bell.
and we are Law Moms Out Loud. And as y'all know, we help lawyer moms grow as lawyers, moms, and people. And today is a lounge show. So we're here just hanging, very informal, talking to y'all about what's on our minds and our hearts. And there's a lot of that to talk about today, right, Hannah?
Yeah, I think I don't know, with every circle I'm kind of a part of, it feels like this week has been sort of a heavy week. I don't know. The weather in Austin has been kind of gray, which we're not that used to, like gray. And it'd be nice if it was kind of cold so you could put on a sweater or something, but it's not necessarily been like that. It's been trickster. It's tricky because it seemed like that for a few days. And then today is just kind of like humid and weird. But anyway, I think in addition, just the weather has sort of matched the way it seems like a lot of people have felt that I've talked to, just a bit like in the middle of what I call the swirl, just like lots going and lots happening. And so I think, in that space today, sometimes even for these lounges, we try to like make a plan or we're going to talk about this and that. And today we're like, our three things we do our dominant thought, what we're reading, and our mom gold stars. So that's what we have to bring today. And a lot of times those get kind of mushed in, and I'm always like, oh, I wish we had more time to talk about that. So we'll kind of walk through those. We'd love to hear y'all's. For anybody who's watching live, love to hear what your dominant thoughts are, what you're reading, all of that stuff. So, Kate, do you want to kick us off with your dominant thought? What have you been thinking about this week?
You bet. And today we're recording this show on November 4th of 2022. It is a Friday, and it is the very last day of early voting because the election is on Tuesday, November 8th. And anybody who follows me on social media knows I've been talking about the election and talking about voting and why I'm voting in this election, why it matters to me. I've been thinking a lot about all of the things that matter to me and what bring me to the polls. But something that really I've been thinking about a lot in the last couple of days is the suffrage movement. And of course, I think about it every time we have an election. But I also started reading a novel, which I ended up not finishing because it was boring. But the novel was about these three sisters who were suffragists and or suffragettes, I guess it was. And they were, involved in sort of the protests and accused of witchcraft. And it got me thinking of really what it was probably like to be a woman in the era. And the suffrage movement started in the 1800s, and we didn't finally get the right to vote until 1920. So it was about 70 years of active fighting and campaigning that women did for the right for all women to vote. And of course, they were completely vilified. And today on Facebook, I posted a bunch of political cartoons I found from the era, portraying suffragettes as evil women and demonstrating what the cartoonists, the men of the day, would have liked to have done to those women, which of course involved violence and death. And it really made me feel strongly about coming on the show, talking to you guys, reminding ourselves of how hard women fought for us to have the right to get over to the polls. And so I want to remind everyone, think about all of that. Think about all the bloodshed and all the fight that went in just for our right to be able to just go and cast our ballot. And that for sure has been my dominant thought this week, Hannah. You're muted.
Yeah, Katie, I was planning on this anyway for today, but it's the last day of early voting. I'm always on the last day like, oh crap, it's finally here. I always swear I'm going to do it early and then don't. So as soon as we're done recording today, I'm going straight to the polls. And in my neighborhood, a little known place where you can go and do your vote. There's never a line. It's always super awesome versus the other place I try to go before you had to wait like an hour around the block, which is yay people voting, but also not that convenient when you're trying to work and everything else. So I'm going to go straight after this. And I think it's our duty to do our part, right? I don't think you get the right to complain if you're not willing to do something about that. That's important to me in life. Like, don't come to me with complaints without solutions. So I think for those of us who, and some people out there who really want to complain about how things are and they wish this and that was different, if you're not going to vote, I think you really should turn in your complaint card, because you weren't willing to do anything about it. I mean, however you believe, whatever it is that you think, you have to do the least we can do is take a minute to go vote. Especially with the early voting part, at least in Texas. I don't know if all the states do that, but that we can, partake in getting it in your schedule whenever you can for like 2 weeks is pretty great. So, um, and I don't think it's been my dominant thought by any stretch, but I'm very glad for it being yours to remind me. I was just texting, and this is kind of fun. So Paula, who a lot of y'all know on the Law Moms team, and I were talking about we're going to go over there together. So I was like, Paula, as soon as the show's over, we got to go vote. So I'm excited about that. I think my dominant thought this week has been thinking about beginning to plan for 2023. As especially with it becoming November, I think the slide from November 1st to January 1st is right. One of the big fast slides, those metal slides, you need to just right down. In a good way. I mean, I think in some ways it's really nice. I think it feels good that the end of the year comes quickly somehow, like we're all ready for it to end. And I think that's a real gift in the way the holidays and all that aligns. And there's a lot of joy packed in the end when otherwise we might feel tired or whatever. So I am starting to look towards 2023. 2022 for me was kicked off, really the planning for it, in December of 2021 at the retreat. So that's a retreat that we did at the Lake Austin Spa, this is year 2 of that retreat on a much bigger scale. So at that retreat, the last time planning for 2022, it was very meaningful to me to just give some intent and some thought to 2022. We made vision boards. I had a theme for my year, and it's wild, but the vision board just became true. It's already complete. I think that probably says something about what was on my vision board. And my theme was I'm ready for 2022. And I had no idea why I was saying, what was I ready for? Like, what was it? And now what I've been through this year and all the change and all the experiences I've had, I now understand what my sort of spirit and soul was saying I was ready for. So for me, I've started to think about 2023 and really wanting to go into that with intention. I'm going to have more thought and intent with it than I can even do in our retreat. And especially this retreat, there's a lot more to it for us, like running it and hosting it. It's not going to be the same. It's just participating. So getting ready and trying to figure out what that looks like for me, how to plan, how to reflect, how to get into the right spirit for 2023 to just build and be a whole new thing.
I've been a business owner now for 7 years, and for the first several years, I would try and fit all my travel, everything into the holidays, to Christmas time. My husband and I would go see his family in Minnesota, or we'd go there, and I'd start every January feeling behind. And something happened one year. I don't remember which year or why, but for some reason we just didn't go anywhere for the week before the year turn. And I used that quiet time at home to get caught up, to do some business planning. And something happened that year. That intentionality of giving yourself some space sometime in December, starting now. I mean, I haven't even started thinking about it, Hannah, yet. So I'm glad you're saying this, because it makes me start thinking about when I'm going to do it. But this idea of giving yourself some space, whether you're a business owner or not, to think about what are your goals and priorities for next year? How are you going to take care of yourself? What are you going to do? How are you going to carve out space? What is important? And reflect on how this year has been, what has shown up as your priorities and the way you've actually spent your time. That's something we've talked about a lot in the groups that we do. It's like we tell ourselves all the time, I want to hang out with my kids and take good care of my body and et cetera, read a book. And then you look back at actually how you're spending your time, and you're rushing around, and you're not eating well, and you're watching too much TV. And it's like, those are actually my priorities based on my behavior. So I think this combo of reflecting on the gap between what you say you want your priorities to be versus what they have been, and then flipping that to look forward. about what am I going to do about that this next year. Not like New Year's resolutions. I mean, that's just so, worn and tired, and we all know we just say it and then give it up. But really pausing and giving space. And I know, Hannah, you've got time coming up. You've got a really epic journey adventure coming up to think on this stuff. Are you planning to use your trip for that?
Well, I was thinking of setting somebody asked me what's my intent for the trip. And I mean, that's all new to me. What is my intention for this trip? So part of that was getting some clarity on my vision and 2023. Yes. So part of it was I don't know that I'm going to sit down with like a pen and paper and a calendar as much as just getting my heart in the right space, being open to this. So we're going to Peru. So being open to this big experience that we're going to have, especially the me of November 2022 versus the me of even November 2021. It's very, very, very different. And so I think that I want to see for this trip, like I want to see this trip through new eyes. I want to see it as myself is like from myself now versus the way I used to would travel or do a trip, but a lot more sort of take it all in, let it in. And part of that, getting some clarity on the look ahead. I was just remembering, Kate, I hadn't even thought about this. Um, I guess it would have been, so it's when I hurt my ankle. So that would have been in 2018. So in 2018, Drew and I got married, and on our honeymoon, I sprained my ankle very severely. Like they said, it would have been easier if I broke it. And I was on crutches for 8 weeks. And then that winter, between Christmas and New Year's, my kids were at their dad's, and Drew and I went to Taos, New Mexico. And that was the first time I'd been there. It was super snowy. It was 5 degrees. I don't think I'd ever been in 5-degree weather before. um, and I remember it being my ankle because I had like very carefully, I'd just gotten out of the boot thing on the snow, and or off the crutches. I didn't have a boot, whatever. Um, and I did this like reflection and look ahead planning thing there in New Mexico in 2018. I've always like the new year has always been my jam. Like it's a new start, not in a resolution way, although I'm sure I've done that, like top 10 things I'm going to do this year, but more just a clarity, a clearing out and a ushering in has always been the most important to me. Like I'm never on New Year's Eve been somebody to get drunk and then waste New Year's Day. Like no, 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 no. It's way too important to me for that. Plus, I don't like that anyway. But besides, anyway, when I was in New Mexico, I remember thinking to myself, I should do this for other people. I should like help them sit and reflect on their year and plan for the next someday. I wonder if I could like someday bring people back here to New Mexico to the Maple Dodge Lujan house where I was and like do that. I wonder if anybody would come. I think I even texted my friend Faith Johnson Lowry. I don't know if there's any chance she's watching this, but I remember texting her and she was like, "Oh yeah, I definitely do that." Like, "Oh, okay, there's something to that." And Kate, I just made the connection. I had forgotten all about that until I remembered what I did last year, and certainly what we're doing this year is exactly that. Of a bigger, we've got 40 something women coming this year to reflect on their year and then look forward. So I guess I pulled that out of the universe and brought it to life. So that's exciting. I hadn't thought of that until just now. So some of it in Peru, some of it just being open to it and looking for sort of clues out there in the world and in my experience. Because I'm learning about that too, like not necessarily asking a question and expecting an answer right now, but asking a question, giving it a little time and kind of collecting bits and pieces of information that add up to an answer over a period of time a little bit more. So I think that's what I'm doing.
Well, I think Peru sounds like a really good spot for that.
Yeah,
I bet
we're
there's a
gonna.
lot of magical, universal communication happening.
Yeah, well, we're gonna do that hike up Machu Picchu. I guess there's like all kinds of variations that may seem more intense than it's gonna be. Like we're gonna hike up, spend the night, and then hike down. I think is how it's gonna work. And somebody's helping us with the tent and all of that. So it's like 2 days worth of hiking. I don't know. I'm showing up. I'm along for the ride. But I have to believe that there's some special stuff that happens at that place. So
Uh-huh.
super excited
Yeah,
about that part.
that's great.
Okay, Kate, this week, reading. What you been reading?
Y'all, I am so like this book is I'm only halfway done and I'm just underlining like in every page. So it's called Starry Messenger: Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization by Neil. Do you
Ooh,
say deGrasse or deGrasse?
I think it's DeGrasse.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is like the people's astrophysicist. Like he has such a way of communicating that is just palatable and easy to understand. And I just am crazy about the man. This is really the first book I've ever read of his. I know he has like, it's not
I,
Astrophysics for Dummies or what's it
for
called?
people in a hurry.
For People in a Hurry. Isn't that the best? Um,
It's just have you read that book, Katie?
no, I'm going to though, because I'm now want to
It's
follow him.
hard. I'm just gonna say Drew bought it for me one year for a present for Christmas. It's like very on brand for me. I love outer space and stars and all that.
Uh-huh.
And it was still pretty. I don't know that it is. I guess I wanted astrophysics for super dummies, and it was like astrophysics for smart dummies.
It might not work for
For
me.
part of it.
Well, this book is so interesting because like it's cosmic perspectives on civilization, so it's like looking at the behavior of humans, and he often references what the aliens would think, like if they came down to
Mhm.
Earth and what they would think of the things that we say and do, which is just a fascinating way to perceive ourselves. But I was texting someone about Allie. I was texting Allie because I thought we know someone who's also very into space, and I said, you got to read this book if you haven't read this book already. And she said, well, tell me what about it. And so I went through all my underlines in the first few chapters and texted her. And so one of the first things that he talks about is personal truths. And he describes them as something that you may hold dear, but you have no way of convincing others who disagree. And requiring everyone to agree with your personal truth would be a dictatorship, which is something powerful for me because, as you all know, I feel a lot of convictions about my personal truths. And one of the things I'm learning how to do is to be more allowing of other people having their own personal truths and not being wrong and not being, a dictator myself about these things. That's one big point that I love, that I
Yeah.
love the cosmic perspective of that. The other thing, and we think about this a lot, this, idea of the universal design and how we don't know, when hard things happen or something happens in our life, it's not the way we wanted it to go. We don't exactly know, because we only have this time and space perspective in our, little lives. And so he was talking about how, the asteroid that took out the dinosaurs paved way for humanity. And certainly the dinosaurs probably would not have seen the cosmic perspective of that. Another really fascinating section of the book, there's a couple cool things about, like, I always love this when people do over the arc of time. I've always been fascinated by history and the way that things change historically, but he's talking about this idea of exponential progress and how we exponentially speed up the rate at which we learn and grow and progress, right, as a species. But just like if you think about, in the last 15 years, the progress as compared to the previous, 500 years is about equal. And that's one of the reasons that young people have such a difficult time respecting their elders. Because, like, really, what do we know? Things move so fast for them in their short little lives, but that elders carry the wisdom of integrity, and kindness and love. That is something that really is learned over time. This wisdom aspect, which I thought was a really cool, just something to think about, and there's always these, there's kids these days and sort of like the generational battles and struggles and thinking about it that way. I see a comment here from Fidel. Is it correlated to technological advancement that also grows exponentially? Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. And he breaks down the tech advances in 30-year increments, starting with 1830. No, 1870, right when the railroad was completed, and sort of what would happen in those 30 years, and then 1900 to 1930, and then 30 to 60. And it's just like, it blows your mind when you look at it.
Right.
that way. And so I don't even know what the net is, yet on this book. As I said, I'm only halfway through, but it's one of those that's just like having me sort of put on a different pair of glasses and look around, at everything.
Cool. Did
Yeah.
you get that at the airport?
I did. I was like at the airport and I was like, no, 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 no. And then I saw it. I was like, oh my God, that looks amazing.
Okay, good. Because I'm going tomorrow. I don't have it. I was like, "Ooh, I wanna take that with me on my
It's a
trip. I'm gonna
good one.
get it."
Yeah. How about you? Tell us
Um,
what you're reading.
well, I guess since we last did a show, and talked about books, I've done 2. So it's okay if I talk about 2? Um,
Yes.
okay. So the first one being Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. As part of one of our groups, Kate and I had to do a book report, and I've read Big Magic 2 or 3 times before, over the years, and it's one of those books that's really like living and breathing and changing and influential to me. And I think the subtitle is Creative Living Beyond Fear or Without Fear. I've been toting it around. I'm like, I don't know where it is at this moment. And Elizabeth Gilbert is who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, the book that got made into a movie that Julia Roberts was in. And she is just this incredible creative mind. And in doing that book report, I went back through and took out just all the main lessons. And it's so interesting because the lessons now, when I've reread it versus what I'd seen before, and like, because I could see my old underlines, and to see now the differences in those lessons was super impactful. Just to see, like, back before I was all about underlining fear and courage and being brave and like don't let fear drive the car, even though they're on the road trip. That sort of stuff was what resonated with me. Versus this time around, it was more about the work of the creative life and getting to it, getting to work every day, devoting time to your art, and art being whatever it is that you do. I think that you let yourself off the hook too easily if you think of creative living or artistry as traditional art, in the terms of paint, sculpture, and clay or whatever. But that really all of us do art in our lives the way we bring creativity, bring something forth. That's how I think of art, is when you bring something inside forth, and I certainly do that. Um, and just sitting down to that work. And one thing that's interesting, and Kate, this didn't make it into my book report, so I'll tell you about it. Was she was talking about how people say they have no time, yet when people get in these affairs or whatever, they all of a sudden find time to sneak off into the stairwell for 10 minutes for a hot, heavy makeout session, right? And she tells you essentially to have an affair with your creativity and your art, to find 10 minutes in the stairwell, to steal moments, to tell everybody you're going to do X. And really, all you're really doing is going into your creative space and doing whatever that is that you do and locking the door.
I love
Um,
I love that concept.
Yes, and I thought I mean, that's a concept that is woven through a lot of stuff that everybody's read about. Like, if it's important to you, you'll make time for it. And we're like, no, no, I have too much things. And believe me, you know, us law moms understand, as business owners or just lawyers, or lawyers and business owners and moms and wives and all the things. I mean, it would be very easily to use the law mom thing as your excuse to let yourself off the hook for living your fullest and most creative life of, oh, I'm so busy, look at me, I'm a law mom, I've done all this stuff. You could do that if you want, but I don't think it will be as fulfilling. Certainly Elizabeth Gilbert would say it's wouldn't be as fulfilling of an existence. And so just using that notion of stolen time and moments, like for the book report, I did mine in a poem format. That was a poem written about like the summary of the points of the book. And so to make that happen on the timetable, of course, we had plenty of time to do it, and then I didn't, and it was like due tomorrow, and I had to end up taking a decent part of a Sunday, staying up, waking up early to get it all done. And I was laughing at, like, I wouldn't have done this to go work out, but I did it to bring my art forth. So I was just thinking about how, like, bringing that um
You
bringing
know what
that
all the
forth.
people are thinking, Hannah? Is she going to read us
No.
the poem?
I'll read it on here.
What do you want to?
Okay, I don't know if anybody's thinking that. They're
I
probably
know we're all
in
thinking
a
that.
do you want me to read it? Or should I
Yeah.
post the reading of it? Here, let's see if I
Whatever
can
you
pull it
feel
up.
more comfortable with. We love the way you read poetry. So if you want to read it, we'd love to hear it. If you're not in the mood, because you kind of got to be in the mood, then we can leave.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm always kind of in the mood for it. I'm never not in the mood for a poem. Okay, well, let me okay, sure.
Okay, while you're doing that,
So,
or do you need a minute to pull it up and I can
well,
distract ourselves?
I've got it. It's here.
Oh, awesome.
So
Let's
whatever
hear
you're
it.
going to say, I'm interested.
Oh, I was going to just talk about my gold star. So, but we can do that after poetry.
Okay, and then I'll save my other book because I ended up talking about this one for forever. So okay, Big Magic, according to Hannah Hembry Bell. Elizabeth Gilbert wrote Big Magic to the still small voice inside, who insists on living creatively, yet tends to run and hide. Imagine you are on a road trip and fear is in the car. The key is not to let fear drive, or you won't get very far. You see, the clock is ticking. The world keeps spinning round. We have no time to play it small or focus on renown. Make art for your own sake, she claims, not focused on an end. Create what causes a revolution in your heart. Uncertain outcome is the spend. Now, before I lose your interest, thinking, artist, I will never be. Remember, art is creativity expressed with paints or your spreadsheet. Fear will try to fool you, demanding a perfect result. But perfectionism is fear in high heels. Don't take the bait to sulk. Instead, you must get to it. Work with stubborn gladness as your theme, not begrudging drudgery and wailing. Make enchantment and wonder your scheme. Because inspiration is like a fairy, drawn to those who play. It won't run out, but its taste is discerning. Be open and ready, Gilbert would say. If greatness pays a visit, let it catch you hard at work. Don't wait on inspiration as your excuse to sit and shirk. Guaranteed, while on this journey, ego will whisper in your ear. Jump from bright moment to bright moment, not doggedly persevere. This lesson evaded me my first few times through. Now I see that lie a comin' and realize it's a clue. For when we approach big magic, fear will work to keep us small. Like point to a lack of fervor. Art requires passion, after all. But now you'll know the secret. When chances of zeal are bleak, curiosity, passion's calmer cousin, is the answer that you seek. Follow the path before you, one step at a time. Inspiration leaves interest and fascination as breadcrumbs for you to find. Your job is just to listen, fueled by a resounding yes. Then heed curiosity's calling. No more, no less. Gilbert offers questions as you begin your search for more, like what are you willing to make sacrifices for? She suggests that you consider what would you do if you might fail? The answer to that question is your personal holy grail. Another helpful query you can pull down from the shelf. When, aspiring creator, Do you lose yourself? As you apply your answers, employ the trickster over martyrdom and doom. Use play and delight as raw material, not melancholy and gloom. You may ask how art adds profit to boost your bottom line. For me, creativity provides a harvest of inspiration from the vine. You too can yield the plenty if you dive in with all your heart. Say yes, create space, be ready. The world's counting on you to start.
Oh, it's
Okay,
so
that's all.
good. It's so good, Hannah. Okay, I have to ask a question about one of the lines. The
Yeah.
personal holy grail is what happens if you contemplate failure.
What would you do? And the way she says it in the book is something like, what would you do if you might surely fail? Like, because people say, what would you do if you wouldn't fail? And she's like, that's not the question. The question is, what would you do even if you might fail at it?
Mm.
Because that's the thing you must do. Like, it doesn't matter. Her whole point is you don't create so that you don't do these things focused on the ends or the outcome. So if you removed a like megawatt outcome from the equation, and maybe even you'd be ridiculed, maybe even it would be horrible, what would you do then?
Oh man. It's so, so good, Hannah. It's so good. I love the poem. I mean, the book. It's such a special thing. And then to have written a poem. I hope that Elizabeth Gilbert hears this poem. Somebody share this with her if you know her.
Yes, anybody know her? Oh my God. Well, I thought about at some point, I mean, she is like, okay, Kate. Now, one time I commented on one of her posts and she made a heart on it. So
Oh,
we're basically already best friends. I mean, it's just bound to happen. Bound to
she's
happen
probably
soon.
watching live. Elizabeth, come on. We need a comment from you.
Yeah, I know. She really, to me, is such an inspiration. She's been through a lot, and I also think of her as a person who, and I've heard people talk some me about her a little bit, and like some of her choices or whatever. And I just think, good for her. Who cares what they say about you, Liz Gilbert? You do you. I think she's such a good example of listening within herself and following her true north, and kind of, damn the consequences. Like, she married the guy from the Eat, Pray, Love book, I think, after Much Ado, and then is not married to him anymore. And that takes some guts because you wrote this whole love story book and then, that was complete or whatever. It's not my business, but it's just, to me, I think she's just a good example of tuning in and living your life from your true voice. And that's what that book is about. If y'all have not read it, really honestly, syllable for syllable, it's the best stuff out there. I swear I say that all the time, but no, for real, for real. It is so, so, so good. And I think not just for people who write poems, if that's not your thing, or make art, but like, traditional art, but if you want to bring that creativity to your motherness, your lawyerness, your personness, or you're just curious. And it's one thing that's super, I think, interesting about it too is I shared this book with Drew, and Drew's like not into the woo kind of stuff, any of this kind of magical thinking, stuff. And this isn't exactly magical thinking, but she writes this book in a tone that he also enjoyed, right? Like, you don't have to be super into the universe and to take something important out of that book. So I think, and her tone is respectful. I think we could all learn a lot from her, where she obviously knows some things of the woo variety, but she doesn't like throw it all in people's face like, oh, you're just not awakened, you're obviously just an idiot because you don't know the things I know. So I think that was my anyway. So
That was
there
wonderful.
we
Thank you for
we have it.
sharing your poem with us.
Oh, thanks, Katie. Okay, what about Gold Stars? You were ready. You got it.
So I am in beautiful, oh my God, this place, Santa Barbara. I'm gonna do a little spin. I'm at this gorgeous resort in Santa Barbara, which is up
Ooh.
on this mountain. I don't know if I'm showing you very well. And if you're just listening, I apologize. But my husband Josh and I came out here to Santa Barbara just to spend some time together, without any distractions. And it takes a lot to make that happen and to focus on, a marriage and each other when we got busy lives. And that's a gold star. I don't know if that's a personal gold star or marital gold star, but I would argue that marital gold stars fall under the umbrella of personal gold stars. So
Yeah, I
that's
think it's more personal than mom or lawyer, I think.
right. Yeah. 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 So how about you?
I think my gold star. Oh, so mine would be like a businessy one, so more in the lawyer category for me. Had a meeting with a fractional CFO this week about just business stuff, and has a big spreadsheets and lots of percents and like talk about numbers and ratios and like normally I hear like "Wah, wah, 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 wah," when people start doing that, but that was not how this was. The person, Evelyn, she's awesome and so helpful, and it made me feel very, very on top of things and like a very big girl. To
That's how I
do that.
felt when I went to that tax strategy workshop. I was like, I'm just a very grown up person over here talking about taxes.
I know about taxes. I don't like saying the word taxes.
I know that.
I know. Okay. Well, hey, this one we said we were going to go super short. We're not really though.
We can't help ourselves.
I love the lounge one where we just kind of can chat and see what's been going on this week and how we're feeling. And I'm excited to share I guess next week, I don't know, we'll have to see what we're doing because I'm going to be we're not going to do a live show while I'm in Peru. So we'll check the socials for the latest update of what's coming.
And don't forget to
I know
vote between now and then, everyone.
Yes, and go vote. If you can't get there today, you got to go on Tuesday. I think that's the way that it works.
That's right.
So if you've got time, get out there and do it today. But otherwise, everybody, see you next time.
Do it for the suffragettes, y'all.
Do it for yourself.
Of course. Yes, that too.
Whatever resonates with you. If it's whoever,
just go.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.